Hello and welcome to the Slow the Fuck Down podcast with Glow London and The Drum. I'm Emma Harris, Chief of Glow London and founder of the Slow the Fuck Down movement. In May 22, I had a completely out of the blue cardiac arrest and beat odds of 96-4, surviving unscathed. Since then, I've been committed to sharing the perspective I'm now blessed with, that many of us are wasting the precious time we have on this planet with unsustainable pace and stress. In each episode, I'll welcome some fabulous guests onto the show to share their stories of how slowing down or not has affected their lives, their teams, and their businesses. Let's get started. Welcome to Slow the Fuck Down. Today, joining us are Linn, changemaker and global CEO at Social Element, who's turned dyslexia into a superpower and helps brands tell their stories in genuinely human ways. And Elfried Samba, the brains behind the fame of Gymshark and founder of the Butterfly Effect, who turns bold ideas into real-world impacts. Welcome to the show, Linn and Elfried. So, as we always start our show by asking you the killer question, is how have we got here in this crazy world where everyone seems to be thrashing around. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of negativity. Linn, if I could ask you first, how do you think we've got here?
Oh, I mean, that's such a big question. I think in all honesty, we've let the digital world take over our real world. And I think it's sped everything up, and we are just moving at this speed because we're trying to keep up with the digital world, but we're sort of, there's this juxtaposition between the two. And I think we're caught. And I feel like there's an old world, new world situation happening that I'm actually quite interested in how we, we could go right back to the dawn of time. You go, why do we follow certain rules, certain structures? Why do we have to behave in a certain way? And we're really caught with the world is innovating, the world is changing. We don't quite know where it's heading, but we're still caught in the old routines and the old ways of working. So everything is sort of going back and forth, and we're feeling really stuck, and we don't quite know how to slow the fuck down and find our own way of doing that.
I think you're right. I think there's a lot of fear in that as well, because people are constantly going, should I stick with the old way? Am I leaving, am I going to be caught behind if I don't keep up? What does that future look like? Yeah. I think that's a really, really elegant way. I'm just realizing, talking to you both, I've got like the crack team in social here. So I've got like, if anyone needs any advice on social, listen to this podcast. Alf, what are your thoughts? How have we got here?
I completely agree with that. It's gone to a point where taking time off meant going online. Now taking time off means actually experiencing the real world, which is super interesting. And we've come to a time where we are going through that shift of all the change that's happening. But if you look at the news as well, with everything that's happening across the world, not only are we downloading things that is useful for us to keep on top of the trends, but we're also downloading all the other stuff, right? And that is impacting people's anxiety levels, stress levels, and they don't know where the world is going. They don't know what to trust anymore. AI is happening right now. There's more content that are AI driven. There's AIs impacting jobs, and how did that change things? I think that it's more changing what jobs are going to be as opposed to getting rid of jobs in its entirety. That's a whole conversation. But I just feel like we're going through growth pains right now. And I think it's going to take a bit of time for everything to stabilize and for us to know what the new normal is going to be. But I'm pretty optimistic. I'm an optimist. So I like to say, okay, what's the gain to be had here? What's the newness to be created here? And what experiences can we pivot to ensure that we're not holding ourselves back to how the world used to be? It's going to change. Just rip the sticky plaster. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's that sort of juggling between, it's exciting and it's scary, isn't it? Like I was reading something about talking about the bloodbath in terms of loss of jobs, but you're right. We've been here before. And I've said this before, when the printing press was invented, everyone was scared, radio was going to change the world. Rock and roll music was going to destroy society. We have been here before. This change does feel big though. How are you both doing? Like obviously you're both at sort of the cutting edge of it all, but how are you doing personally with the pace that we're living in at the moment?
I'll jump in and be really honest. I'm really struggling. I'm struggling. And just particularly for myself, I sort of mention this to people that, so I call myself neurospicy. My brain is always fast, it's always on, but I also need space as well. So I get caught in I sort of like a moth to the flame, to the digital world, to social, to making stuff happen. And then I sort of burn out and die because it's too much. So I'm really struggling with trying to find the right boundaries and trying to like keep up so you don't fall behind, but then not, it's like the 0 to hero thing. So I would say right now, working in a business which is remote first, but yet being a creative soul that actually likes to be with humans and ideate and be together. And there's a real juxtaposition between those two, that they don't work. So, if you work at home remotely, it's actually, okay, back-to-back calls, back-to-back. And that kills me from a neurodiverse perspective, because I get really riled up and then I can't slow down and I can't relax or find time just to be human. Or you have meetings in person, which I absolutely adore, but then trying to do the two together is just exhausting. So I feel like I'm constantly, one day I'm like, right, I'm smashing it, I've got it, I've done it, and then I feel like I'm behind before I've even shut my laptop. I think that's the whole thing, that you feel like you're late or behind, or you've not done something before you've even started. So I feel like everything needs to be done at speed, and it's trying to find that way. I've been looking up time shifting and that concept of time, where I think everybody says that time is just going really faster than it was before. And it's because we don't have any space to be bored anymore. So we get consumed, and then but we don't have the pause moments where we feel like time is slowing down. So I'm trying to look at, okay, how can we time shift, or how can we slow time down for the right reasons at the right time, but then not be left behind and not be out of that sort of the exciting part. So it's a real balance of, one day I think I'm a hero, the next day I think I'm on 0, and I don't quite know where it's going to end, genuinely.
God, you and I need to spend some time together, because there are ways and things to change that.
Yeah.
And it's about saying, okay, what can I control? What things can I do differently? How can I create those gaps in my day to regulate myself and create that space? Right, after this, you and I are sitting down and we're looking at your calendar. Elf, how are you doing?
From my side, I had the added pressure. So I left Gymshark in 2022. And because I had already built my profile online, I created this story about the fact that if I failed, it'll be public and it'll be painful. So I got into this rush of just trying to prove to myself that I made the right decisions, trying to prove that what I was doing was of value, it was of value, but I think I just added a lot of added pressure on myself. And with all the news that you see right now of companies raising this amount, or people doing this revenue, or people doing that, and everybody posting the highlight reel, I got into a space that I'm not used to, of comparison and seeing whether I'm doing the right thing. But then I got to a point, because we have a lot of clients in the US as well. So whenever I'm on the West Coast, it's terrible, because I wake up early anyways. But then when you go to the West Coast, you wake up early and you're still behind, right? So I reached boiling point where I was just like, everything I'm doing is just not enough. I'm not getting to where I need to get to, and I'm going into the downward spiral. Then I caught myself and I said, do you know what? All you have to do is protect the downward spiral, because it's not what happens. It's the story you tell yourself that puts you into like a hole, right? And it's very hard for you to get out of it. And when I started to do some research, I stumbled onto this podcast, the David Samba podcast, with Daniel Ek on there. And he talked about the fact that he no longer obsesses over time, because everybody talks about time management, productivity, time. But he said that his whole focus is all about energy management. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting, because different things give us energy. And if we spend as much of our time in our zone of energy, then we can do actually a lot with our time. Yeah. And you just have to basically start with understanding yourself. And it's ironic how so many things in life starts with the understanding of yourself and being self-aware. And if you think about the Matrix as well, a bit of a clue of that is in there. We're basically all like living batteries. And the goal is to find out what energizes us and what takes away from our energy. And then what we need to do is say, okay, for where I want to go, where can I be in my zone of energy, and how can I work with other people where the areas that I drain, they gain, right? And then how do I go together as a Duracell match pack, right? To be able to actually go to the goals at hand. So now our whole focus as a business has not just been how do we generate revenue or how do we save money, but also how do we preserve our energy and make sure we're deploying it in the right places. And that just changed my whole complete way that I schedule everything. I know that at the start of the day, I have my most energy. So if I do a task, how many points will that take me down, right? And then where do I, in the right places, regain the energy? And how do I sleep in the right time to make sure that my starting point is way better than where it was? I just gamified it, right? So I went from making it a very serious task to saying, okay, I started off with these amount of life points, and I know that today is going to be a good day, or can I add a treat on there to increase it, right? And that's just made sure that I have enough energy in the day to do the things that I need to do, and people just see me in a consistent space, right? So, and that's what I've been able to do with myself.
Brilliant. That's proper intentionality. It reminds me of actually the way I help my kids revise. So to get them through, anyone that's going through GCSEs or A-levels this year, this is a really good advice. And that is to pick a subject that you don't like and do that for just 20 minutes, then a subject, then 5-minute break, then a subject that you do like, then a 5-minute break, then a subject that you don't like, or one you like less. And it's exactly that energy management. It's like, this is going to be a tough 20 minutes, but I'm only 20 minutes away from doing something that I find easy. Up, right? And it's interesting. I've not thought of patterning the day like that. I mean, I have to say most of the things I do in my job, I do love. But yeah, it's really important, especially with kids who drain the life out of you. They're drilling holes in your cup of energy.
And you've got 2 16-year-olds doing the GCSEs.
Oh,
that's
my
the
goodness.
like in the. So I want to say to you, like red pill, blue pill. I love that whole theory. But I think it's isn't it? That all in theory sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But it's just when all the other saboteurs come in
100%.
and like stop you from. As I said, some days you go, yes, I've managed that. And then other days you're just like, why did I not?
You'll never do it perfectly, right? So let's say, for example, one of the things that I have is don't eat after 8 p.m. And last night I ate at like 9:30. And I knew that my starting rate is not going to be in a good place.
It's the gremlin theory, isn't it?
Yeah, but then as long as you don't do it twice in a row, you're fine, right? And as long as you get it to 80%, I think we're also obsessed with being like robots right now. And like I said, the downward spiral is the thing to protect yourself with. When you don't get it right, you catastrophize and say, oh, what I've done is wrong, and then that's the spiral that starts. So as long as you give yourself some grace and you make systems based on your worst week, not your best week, you'll be all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that catastrophization we do talk a lot about. It's how we're pre-wired.
Yeah.
So 85% of our thoughts are negative, and our unconscious minds don't know time. So we're constantly catastrophizing, and then that belief system creates a fear in us. So something we talk a lot about in Slow the Fuck Down is the ability to be present.
Yeah.
What's actually happened now, that catastrophe I'm seeing of, oh, that's it now, I'm going to be eating at 9 o'clock every night, is not real.
Yeah.
Be kind to yourself. Lynn, I swallow because it's an emotional thing to say. You were by my side when I had my cardiac arrest.
Oh, what?
How has that changed your life?
I'm jokes. We said that. It's like I have genuine deep emotional trauma from the experience. It's changed my life forever. Seeing somebody that you love, and I don't like seeing somebody you love makes it even worse, but just seeing anybody be there 1 minute and then possibly not be there the next is the biggest reminder that we could die at any minute, any time. And life is sacred. The world stopped. I said, there's that famous poem, Stop the Clocks. The clock stopped. And it was a realization that you, the person that I adore and love, and we were going to go shopping. 1 minute we were going shopping and having a selfie, and the next minute you were on the floor, not breathing. And ever since then, it's a reminder to me daily about don't sweat the small things. I think when I got back, so we had this whole experience. And I said the moment for me was when they gave me carrier bags with your clothes in, and they were like, "She's not going to make it," and I was just like, "No, this is not going to happen." But when I got back, I accidentally sent my laptop to the people that were coming to collect some golf clubs, and my husband was like, "How could you do something so stupid?" And I was like, "Doesn't matter." And I think that for me is the biggest lesson from it's like nothing can be worse than that, and who we are and our energy and our health is the number, even though I know most of the theories and most of the practices to protect myself. I know, like, I'm doing a lot about being present right now. I've organized my brain I've named different parts of my brain. So Rainbow Bright is right now be present. I've got Doomsday, which is the one literally so I can talk to them all. So I sort of, in theory, I practice a lot of it. but but there's still the human. There's the human Linn that has to keep on reminding themselves, and that's why I always go back to that moment and I say, Linn, you have to remember this, and you have to remember that being here is a massive privilege, and you need to enjoy every second of it, but without stress. And you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Tomorrow is guaranteed for none of us, and I think that's the biggest part. And it was interesting. It was some friends of mine didn't know that we were together. They saw your LinkedIn post and they forwarded it on to me and went, "You've got to pay attention to this." And I was like,
wow.
Because they recognise that both of us were very similar, and we run, don't we? And we get really excited, and we forget that to your point, we have a battery. And I feel like I forget that my battery, even though I'm Duracell, I'm a premium battery, and I got that extra bit in there, but it can run out and it can go. And I think what happened with you is that biggest reminder of you have to protect your battery, because there's also people in the world that need you here right now. And I think that's the biggest thing. And then when they said to me, like, it was like, oh my God, I've got to tell your kids, I've got to be here with Danny. And I think that, and you say this a lot, it's like, can you imagine if I wasn't here for my kids? And I think whether you have kids or not, there are people in the world that need you here, and you have to protect yourself so that you're here to do what you need to do.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the trauma for you is worse, because I don't remember any of that. I don't, I woke up in ICU and went, oh, wow, what's happened? I asked you the same question 100 times and then posted on LinkedIn and changed my life. But, what you went through in a way was much, much more traumatic. So, well, thank you for saving my life and for sharing that. I'm no doubt it had a massive impact on you. And look where we are today. So, Alf, you made a name for yourself at Gymshark, massively scaling that business by building just the most brilliant, like, this is how you do it, native platform first content. Obviously now you help other brands do that by building real community. How does your sort of pace and slowing down help you understand how you do the work now? What do you take from being more considered? Because in a pace of social, everything's very, very quick. You've got it right though. So how do you get that pace right?
Well, first and foremost, it was a massive team effort, right? I think that a few of us get the privilege and the honor to be able to tell the tale, and then for people to give us the accolades and the glory, if you will. But it was a massive team effort. That period between 2016 to about 2020, honestly, it was the best time of my life. The most challenging time of my life. We had an office that felt like a call center, just white walls with like things in boxes everywhere, and we felt that we were going to take on the world. And Ben was my desk buddy, and every time we would reach out to either a potential brand partner, a potential employee, or anybody, and they would say like no to us. Like, we couldn't get an account manager on Meta for a while, right? And we would put them on our list of people that when we eventually get there, we're gonna like give them one back. But
did you take commission? Big mistake.
Yeah. It was a phenomenal story. But going back to self-management amongst the chaos. So I was born in the Congo, and if anybody that knows anything about the Congo, and I'll give you the reality of my mom's day to day, right? So every week my mom gets a phone call that somebody that she knows passed away, right? And she'll cry about it, they'll do the funeral, and then she's over it, and there's the next one, and there's the next one. It's an expected certainty that we either goes to weddings or funerals. That just happens, right? And because when we moved here, I was further away from that, you obviously get sad by it, and it's always a trigger to cherish life. But it was only when I went back to the Congo and I started to form attachments with family members that I met, and then one of them passes away, right? And I'll give an example. One of my cousins, right, very helpful when we were in the Congo. Like, he was taking us everywhere, driving us everywhere, and then on the day that, by the way, I'm an Arsenal fan, right? So, and this is insignificant.
Stop the podcast.
It's insignificant to the grand things of things.
You're dead to her now.
We're not going to make this a football podcast. I'm not going to ask who you support, because it could be either the worst podcast ever or the best podcast ever.
I'm not talking about it.
Okay, cool. So I'm watching Arsenal versus Manchester United, right? So I hate Manchester United more than I hate Tottenham. So that's my thing, right? Because growing up, I got bullied at school because all the Man United friends are doing very well. I moved to England and Arsenal started doing really badly. So that's a whole other thing. So I'm getting ready to watch this thing, and I believe that this is going to be the most significant game ever. And then I got a phone call that my cousins passed away, right? And it was like an incident that happened, right? And I was like, so sad. And then, by the way, we lose the game as well, right? So it's like the worst thing I thought happened. My cousin passes away. But later that night, I had Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock concert. So seeing both of them, right?
Wow.
And on the same day, I went from like my lowest of lows, and it lifted me up to understand the good and the bad that comes with life, right? And what it understood is on one side is that it's not that deep, right? So things that happen to us are a reminder for us to make the most of our time here, right? And most of the time, the things that we're doing, we're not curing cancer or saving the world. We're just keeping ourselves occupied with the time that we have here. So don't make moments more significant than they actually are. Yes, be present, be grateful, cherish those moments. But at the end of the day, that's what they are. They're here to keep us occupied during our time here. I have so many friends that rush to sell their business, and now they're looking for things to do, right? They're creating their own like busyness because we have so much time. And I spent a lot of time like unplugging from the social space because I understood. Because first I was like, I don't want to miss anything. But then I realized, well, the algorithms knows what I like. So when I go onto platform, it will prioritize everything anyway. So actually, let me take my phone usage time from 12 hours to 5 hours. And then I got 6 hours left. And now time's moving really slow for me, right? Because I'm not trying to fill the void. You have to allow yourself to be bored, right? I'm getting time to learn new things, to speak to different people, do things more with my time. But that comes with unplugging from the matrix, getting very comfortable with boredom, and using that time in the right places, right? And I think that's so much, we were racing to showcase how productive we are, successful we are. I don't even video or take pictures or share stories of when I travel. I do about 50 flights a year. I've stopped showing because I'm like, why am I doing that? Am I doing that because I like it? Or am I doing that because I want to demonstrate to people that I'm doing very well, right? And once you start to realize that this is not that deep, we're doing a whole song and dance to try to showcase and project to people that we're not having a life that's more exciting than what we are, but who cares, right? And once you start to get into that point, life becomes a lot better because going back to your point, I've seen so many celebrities, so many significant people that will pass away. I think the person that created Call of Duty passed away in a car crash. He was a post on a meme page and then everyone forgot about it the next day, right? So I'm like, the people who are doing all of this to project and impress people, they don't give a fuck about us. And the people that do are right here in front of us. Just spend more time there.
Well, the truth is, just building on that, is that, and I always say this, you can be replaced. So it's just going back, when I was just talking to you about why is it so important that you look after your battery and that you're here, is for the things that you can't be replaced in. But like with work, I can be replaced tomorrow. I mean, they're not going to do it the way that I do it, but I will be replaced. And it's remembering that. So it's trying not to be a slave to things where you can be replaced. But then on the social thing, I actually did a private Instagram account because I wanted to remember my moments. So I was really torn with that, seeking validation, sharing stuff. But actually, if I didn't have that, the reason, when Facebook first started, I did it so I could keep in touch with people that I didn't want to speak to every day. And I wanted to capture moments that I could go back and remember. And that's like the good part of social, where if you said to me, like, I could go, oh, look on Facebook, here's when my babies were born, or here's my wedding, or here is when this happened, or this is when I last saw this person. So I wanted that part of it, and I wanted to keep that for myself. So I actually set up a private page where only I could see it, so I could keep track of. And I think that's the juxtaposition with social, is that you want to mark moments, you want to remember things, you want to keep track of your story and your journey, but then you're torn, aren't you, between then feeling like you're beholden to it. And I mean, we could talk about this for hours, you and I, around
I'm sure.
algorithms, and I mean, I've got lots of thoughts on that, so I don't want to derail our conversation right now, but I feel it's like, what narrative are we listening to? Who are we listening to? I think there's a lot to do about news and who's in control of these platforms that we're actually like a slave to. So it's like there's a massive opportunity to completely reshape, like take the good, but get rid of the stuff that is actually greedy people trying to commercialize you or
divide you,
distract you.
divide you. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And listen, I can see a virtuous circle here, and like you, I'm an optimist.
Yeah.
So if we stop caring about what other people think, which is letting go of what I call FUPO, this noise, this version of other people's view, fear of other people's opinion that we're all slave to. And I do think social has made it even worse. I remember a time where everything that was happening, I saw through a lens of how I was going to share it. I mean, I so don't feel like that anymore. I'm so much more present. But if you were talking before about the comparing thing, when you're constantly comparing ourselves to other people, if we can unlock ourselves from the need to compare and unlock ourselves from the need to share, then we free ourselves from that virtuous circle of what's going on, and now I've got to do it. And I feel like back in the 80s, it was what car you've got, and what designer clothes that you've got. That isn't the energy anymore. It's cool to recycle. It's cool to be thrifty. So hopefully there can be a different shift.
I mean, I think the truth is that human nature. I think you go right back to human nature. We've always going to compare. Like back in the day, they probably compared like who had the better cave or who had the best. Like he's got leopard print. He's got much better skins than I'm wearing right now. Like that. So there's human nature that we will never change. We will always have comparison. It's how we compete. It's how we like get better. It's how we innovate. And we will always talk. We'll always have gossip. If you think about before social, you had the round fires, as I said, the cavemen were probably gossiping about, like you always have all of these things. It's just our digital world that we've allowed to exist enhances the behavior that is toxic and that isn't. So it's how do you get back to the human nature hot parts of just being human beings without it being accelerated in certain areas. It's like now people are going straight into the comment section. You actually don't even look at the content. You look at what people thought about it. And then you watch a war happening. You've got the haters, the lovers, the indifference. So it's like human nature will never change. It's just how do we shape a world that we exist in that enhances the good parts of human nature more than the toxic ones.
And by the way, comparison is, I'm a glass half full kind of person, right? And I how I would do it was not in a way where I wouldn't want the best for the person I'm comparing to. I actually will clap for them, but then I'd be really hard on myself about why I'm not doing better. And that's the destructive nature of it. And I think what I've realized is, if you look at the 7 deadly sins, envy is one of the big ones, right? And I think that what FOMO does is it's great when you feel like you're missing out, but it's not so great when it goes into envy, right? And envy, I think, is the biggest thing that's impacting us right now, is that it's gone from I'm not having a life like this to I'm being envious of the person. And as times are getting harder and harder, people are becoming more desperate to be able to portray a life that they like. If you want to get a partner, you have to have these amount of followers, live this kind of life. There's all this stuff about, I'm not going to date somebody if they're not having 100K. And I'm like, well, if you look statistically, not a lot of people do that. Like, so when you start to think about reality versus the world and the stories that we're telling, there's a mismatch there, right? And people still want to perceive or create that story. And really, we should just be very honest with ourselves.
Although,
Black Mirror.
I have to say the one thing, because I know I need to sit down with you, because I need you to remind me of all the things I need to do, like to help me aid, like putting that space in. But I actually use envy well. So I go for, if I'm jealous of something, it means I want it. So I use that. So I will go, I know if I get that feeling of like going green, I call it with my daughter, it's like, you're a bit green right now. I know that I want it. So therefore I have to go, right, how do I figure out where that jealousy is coming from? And then how do I make sure I get it? So that's one thing I'm doing well, I would say, is learning from like knowing that aspiration part of it. Why are you jealous? Why am I envious of this? And it's because actually that's what I want to achieve. So how am I going to get there?
Drive you.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm listening to you both. I don't have it anymore. And I think sometimes I go, wow, that's really changed. Because I talk about life before my cardiac arrest, and
you were Queen FOMO.
I was terrible at FOMO.
You were really, you were worse than me.
Yeah, I was the worst. I was the last in the bar. You would have to drag me out, and I always say, I don't know what the story that I was seeing in my unconscious mind, that Beyonce was going to arrive the minute I left the bar and be best friends with everyone, and for the rest of my life I'd regret the fact that she'd left and I never met her, and actually everyone in the bar would end up living with her in LA. And, you know, I don't know what it was, but I don't feel FOMO anymore. I don't get envious anymore. It's really interesting. There are some things, like even like the drive for my business. I mean, ironically, my business is doing better than it ever has, but I don't remember what I meant, why I cared about this sort of growth of the business and looking at other businesses and thinking I don't know what I meant. I really don't. I think that perspective is maybe something that, you know, when you see death that closely, you realize that, you know, when you think you might die, you don't give a shit about your turnover. You just worry about the people that you love and how you could do things differently. But isn't that interesting? As long as you're using it in the right way, it's healthy, but it doesn't exist for me anymore.
But I think one thing you asked me, so I think there's difference between envious. So I'm envious this person's going on this epic trip, or they're a founder of this business, or they've come up with an idea and they've really gone for it, because they're all things that I would want to do.
Yeah.
I think one thing I've really learned from our shared experience, and obviously I didn't nearly die, but I was there witnessing it, is the FOMO piece. So I even with you and we've made plans, and you'd be really annoyed with me in the past if I'd said, actually, I can't do this. You know, it goes back to the battery. I'm now not afraid to say, do you know what? My battery is depleted today. I just can't do it. So I will cancel.
I don't get annoyed anymore.
No, and you don't get annoyed. So it's game changing. So we can actually, rather than, you know, there's that whole thing of, thank God they've cancelled. We're both really hoping that one of us would cancel. And then you go, would you mind? Oh, yes, absolutely. Don't worry about it. But I'm now not afraid. To your point, it's like, do you know what? What is the worst that's going to happen? Well, it's already happened. Yeah. It's like,
the worst already happened.
Beyonce may show up. Beyonce may...
I'm not waiting for Beyonce anymore. She's waiting for me. She's asked to be on the podcast. I said, I'll think about it. Let's just talk about leadership for a bit. So, Elf, obviously, you're now year 4, you were saying, into the butterfly effect. You know, and you've had an incredible journey. You've got clients all over the world. You're saying 50 flights a week. How do you drive that pace with your team without burning them out?
Did you say 50 flights a week?
A month, sorry.
Well,
I was
going to say, hey.
I'm going to go, what?
Sorry.
but so do you know what? We ask everybody, going back to the whole point, a word that I'm very fascinated by is the word pressure, right? I think that pressure, self-inflicted pressure, is the reason why we do a lot of things. If you think about all these announcements of, well, we've raised this amount at this valuation, that's pressure added. We've done this, so we want to do that, that's pressure added. Oh, we need to be growing 100% year on year. And I think that where mine came from, it wasn't like envy from a place of wanting from other people, because I never had lack. I came from this environment where we grew 100% year on year over 7 years, right? That was my norm. If we were not growing like that, I'm losing my mind, like what's happening? But that's not normal, right? It got me to understand that what we were experiencing is not normal. It can be replicated, but don't get in your own way and add additional pressure and make the moment and the experiences much bigger than they need to be, right? So I had to learn that first and foremost. And the second side, like I said, we're obsessed over revenue growth. We're obsessed over saving money and making sure that we can leverage our moats and our network to be able to get things more with a pound than anybody else can. So that was the first 2 bits. And then I got obsessed about energy, right? So we ask our team members 3 questions every week. What's your motivation, focus, and energy? MFE, right? With those
MFE.
that know
Stealing that.
Yeah. So and it's out of 10, right? And it's motivation times focus times energy, and that gives you your MFE score. And typically, when you ask people, well, why is it a 7, right? They'll tell you a lot of things about what's happening in their life. Why is your focus a 6? And then they'll tell you everything. And then why is your energy a this? Oh, and usually, so we heard somebody say that, oh, they were living in Atlanta, one of our team members, and they were going on a walk, and they saw, like, I'm not going to get too descriptive, but they saw something that got their stress levels going, right? And they're now here working. We know nothing about it. And then it's only when I asked them, so what's your energy levels? Oh, it's like this because we went for a walk, we saw this, I couldn't see for the last 3 days. I'm like, oh my God, take some time off, right? Yeah. So once you ask people, how are you doing? They're going to say, of course I'm fine. But when you ask them a question like, how's your motivation? And then you ask them, well, how do we get it? Not to a 10? How do we get it from a 6 to a 7? And then they'll tell you, I'm going to get clicked up now for 6, 7, for those that understand lead culture. But and then they'll tell you the blueprint of what they can do. And then you're now starting to get into constructive space of what are you going to do about it? What am I going to do about it? Right. And now that we have that pulse along the team, like we can see the workload coming in, we can see the impact that it's having, and we can see the impact it's having on our team, right? Because the goal here is energy management across the board, right? Because at the end of the day, if you think about Formula One, a lot of the time people talk about their sports team, their race. But the sports team I think that we actually are is we're a Formula One car. We're in the Formula One business.
Yeah.
And you have to take the right pit stops to win the race. Otherwise, you'll pop a tire, you run out of fuel, and you won't win the race. So the goal is to win the race. And if you want to win the race, you have to use it tactically, right? And we know there's only about 8 months of the year when we actually have to be at high alert, right? And for anybody that's in the agency business, you'll nod your heads. Basically, everything happens between March, April, May, and September, October, November. Those are the high seasons, right? That's when everybody's ready to buy. Everyone's thinking, what's my strategy? What's my campaign? And then you have the summer months, which is June, July, and August, when everyone's on holiday. If they're not on holiday, the finance person signing off the brief is on holiday, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's December, January, and February, when you're like, Christmas, oh, I don't have a plan. Holy shit, what's my plan? Oh, now I'm ready to execute the plan, right? So as long as you're not getting people burnt out in the wrong time or focusing in high alert in the wrong time, tell people to take their holidays off. Encourage people to make the most of that time, right? I call it pre-season, right? And make sure that you make the most of that, right? I think that we're trying to be on all the time. But if you look tactically and you pick the right moments, right? I own a startup and I take time off. I just take it at the right time.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the problem is we try to do everything all the time. And you can't have everything all at once.
Yeah. Athletes don't train 7 days a week.
No.
Downtime's just as important as uptime.
Rest and recovery is actually the thing that gives you that extra dose of energy that you don't even think about.
We talk, just building on that, I love an analogy. So my one at the moment is Michelin stars. So if you look at, there's a brilliant program on at the moment on Apple where it shows restaurants in different countries trying to get Michelin stars. And it's not even like some of them get their first star, some are getting their second, some want their third. But the thing, so they've practiced for like 9 months, they've worked incredibly hard. But then they think the inspectors come in and the mindset, it's all about their mindset. So as soon as, it was really interesting, as soon as one thing went wrong, so the maitre d' was like, it has to be perfect and we'll only send out perfect dishes. So as soon as the maitre d' started sending dishes back, the whole thing collapsed. So this restaurant that had practiced for 10 months, they were ready for their second star, fell apart because the mindset. So like as soon as that in terms of leadership, as soon as the leader started crumbling, the whole thing fell apart. And we do temp checks. So very similar to yours, it'll be, what's your temp check? And you'll never be a 10. And if you are a 10, it's like, wow. But if you're under a 5, then there's a problem and we need to like work through this and we need to take some barriers away or take some things away, take things off your plate. So I think also there's only so many plates you can have on your buffet. So I love it. I've got food analogies, you've got Formula One analogies.
I use another sports analogy. I'm sorry, I'm going to put my foot into it and talk about Arsenal again. And we've gone 4 years trying to win the Prem. But the example of that is that now they're close to doing it. That's starting to crumble. Imposter syndrome starts to come in.
They will.
Hey, I'm going to let you do that. So it starts to crumble and they're making the moment a lot bigger than what it is. So that's why you have to get over the hump of winning to realize, hey, this is normal now, right? And it all comes with not making moments bigger than what they are. You cannot be a champion. You cannot be at your zone of energy if you've not visualized and just made it your normal, right? And if you make it a far-reaching thing, it will always evade you, right? And I think that that's what we need to do. We just have to not optimize for perfection, just optimize for consistency.
You can learn a lot from a football team. So I love the all or nothings.
Yes.
You know, and even what's the one that Ryan Reynolds did, where he did
the one with Wrexham.
But it's like it goes back to having the right team. So no, it's just in that leadership thing. You're only as good, and you said this. You're only as good as your team. So I love that at the beginning they were like, we just need a striker, we need a goal scorer. But if you don't have an amazing defender, an amazing midfielder, and you've got the goalie, you can't win.
Yeah.
So then it was like, well, we need grass. So you need the team, but you also need the environment.
Infrastructure, yeah.
And it's like all of those ingredients together is when you get your star. It's when you get your premiership. It's when because you've got everything together and everybody is doing the job as well. Everyone knows what their job is, and the leader is really clear on how you're going to get there and consistent, isn't it? It's that consistency that's going to get you over the line.
And I'm going to quote Ted Lasso, staying with the sporting analogy. But it's belief. It's what you were saying. The belief drives the feeling.
Yeah.
The feeling drives the behavior.
Yeah.
The behavior reinforces the outcome, which creates the belief. So it's the belief. Absolutely. This is the thing. The difference for most athletes between first and fourth is up here.
Well, you say to me, Lynn, your brain's always listening, isn't it? It's what you say when you're, and I had a real habit, and I think there's a lot of traits that I identify with my sort of neurospicy journey, but from a child, I always heard there's something wrong with Lynn. So like as a child, it would always be because and it goes back to that structure, because I wasn't following you learned how to read at this age, or you're good at these things. There would always be a conversation about Lynn, like we're worried about Lynn. And that sort of stayed with me. And then I'd always be going, oh, I'm so stupid, and you're telling yourself all the time that there's something wrong with you. And I know I've learned that from you, and you're like, Lynn, your brain is listening. So whatever you're saying out loud, your brain will believe. And it's the same with time. Like you, as you said, there is so much that we can be in control of that we don't realise.
And how do you control the controllables? So one of my favourite things is all about, there's a lot going on we can't control. The question at the beginning, how have we got here? It's not even just the digital world. It's the news we're being fed. It's, a perfect shitstorm of political and economic and everything going on. How do you recognise what you can control and control them?
I realized I know what I'm going to be doing today, right? Like, so I heard about this quote, a Steve Jobs quote, about signal versus noise, right? And at first I thought that everything was signal, but now I understand that some things are signal for me and some things are noise for me, but it might be important, but it's not for me to do, right? So I have to get really good at delegation and making sure that I pass things on to the right people. But really, if I have to boil it down to one thing, obviously energy management, but also just controlling my consumption diet. And that's not just food. It's who I spend my time with. It's what I choose to download in my brain. It's the sources that I tend to listen to, who I listen to. It's also the voice I have in my head. Negative self-talk is a real thing. That's where it starts, right? And I've just changed what I consume, right? Like my friend circles has changed. Who I spend most of my time with has changed. I can control that. You to be able to get from that fourth to first, as you mentioned, I think there's a Will Smith quote that says, from a C to a B player, it's actually really easy. But to get to an A, you might have to change your whole life just to get those little points, right? And that's because in those moments, in the micro moments, is when things really matter, which is why I found it really fascinating in the marketing world when people sold campaigns. But I was like, well, the world is not done in moments. It's done every single day. And it's the micro decision, how you pivot to things, how you react to things. That's what you're paying for, right? You're paying for people that are able to adapt to the elements and adapt to the changes, right? And don't make things bigger than what they are. And as soon as you catastrophize and you start complaining about things, then you go into that downward spiral that I mentioned, right? So one, control my energy, making sure that I start with a full battery as much as possible, making sure I invest in myself first in the day. So I go to the gym, I work on what I need to do. I listen to Hans Zimmer in the morning, get my energy all the way up. And then I know that everything beyond this point will be like chopping the energy away, but make sure that I leave on a high with something that I really love as a treat. And then I look back and ask myself, well, what was I grateful for today? Right.
Yeah.
And by asking yourself, Israel Adesanya, the last style bender from the UFC, he says that that's the thing. And he's a champion, right? That one thing changes his whole life, because when you ask yourself, when you know at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, and you have to say this to somebody, especially if you have a partner, and you ask each other, what is the one thing that you're grateful for? And you can't say the same thing twice. What happens is in your day, you're looking out for things that you're grateful for, right? And then you ignore everything that happens that's negative, because you're like, well, that's not the right signal. I need to find something. I like the coffee lady gave me this thing today, right? So you brainwash yourself to think about things that you're grateful for, right? And then once you start to think about that, one, you have your list of your 5 things you need to do, just 3 to 5 things you have to do today.
Yeah.
And just do those.
Yeah.
And then you have your grateful for. So we have a shared notes, me and my partner, that has both of our 5 things. and also the one thing we're grateful for today, right? And then we just share it. Like, so what are you grateful for? We take our phones off for the last hour of the day. Oh, I put on a Blu-ray, is it the Blu-ray glasses that prevents the light side? And we ask ourselves, so did you do what you needed to do? And sometimes you'll be like, well, I didn't. Or like, okay, cool, let's add it to the list for tomorrow and we'll check in again. Because you don't want to get into the downward spiral of perfection, right? But that interaction is what's super cool, right? And it's just about protecting the downward spiral. That's the biggest thing.
You know what? You've never heard "Slow the fuck down." So, and I remember when I met you, I was like, I love the way this guy talks. What you've just described, you don't realise that's what I say when people say to me, "Oh, you're in Australia. Oh, you're doing this. Oh, you're not really slowing down." I say to them, it's not doing less. It's the micro decisions. And I've never heard anyone talk about micro decisions. It's the micro decisions you make in the minute. How am I going to respond to this? How am I going to feel in this moment? What choices are going to make now? That's what slow the fuck down is. Stop the engine of spiraling. Stop the negativity and fear. Focus on gratitude. All the things you're saying is amazingly slow the fuck down. Lynn.
Well, I was just going to say the biggest realization for me is that what can you control?
Yeah.
And the one thing you can control is you. So you in that situation, how do you respond to that? How do you, that's what I can control. How do I react? How do I treat people? How do I plan? I can only control myself. So I think there is that understanding that it's in my power to slow things down or not. And I said this to you, haven't I? It's like that I know how to get the best out of me. So I need to make sure that I control what I can control to ensure that that happens. Because when you get the best me, that affects everybody else. To your point, that butterfly effect. Everyone that comes in encounter with you have an effect on. So it's knowing that practical things. I've got my grid that I'm using at the moment, which is that high impact. So looking at my day, I 100% 3 to 4 things max, but you say, what are the things I can do today that are going to make a massive, big impact?
Yeah, impact versus what?
Effort.
Yeah.
Oh, I normally say, I thought you might say energy, which is an interesting one. It's the same thing.
Effort and energy are the same.
I'm sort of making up my own grid. Impact, so that's the traditional one.
Impact versus energy, I love that.
Literally just having the 4 squares on my page, and top left is these are the things that I have to do today because they're going to make a big impact. Then I go, these are not so important, and it's just again, it's going, I'm in control of my day and I can decide how it plays out. But I have to say, and I say this, my own thing is my own saboteurs. So as I said, I love to think every day that I can do that, but I know that I so easily slip back into. So I talk to myself a lot, by the way. I talk to my dog and I talk to myself, and I'm not afraid to actually go, Lynn, have a word with yourself. And I do a lot of okay, what are you happy for? I actually did a whole joy exercise. I Mary Kondo'd my life. So, and I didn't just do the drawers. I did people. I did food. I did things I've got everyone I meet, I ask them if they've got, is everyone I mentor, do you have a letter to the universe? Because so I've got my letter to the universe. Every word that I've written in that letter will come true. So I have to be very intentional with what I write down. It has power. Then I've got my visualization board. And again, this is my letter visualized. Then I've got and I think a big thing for joy for me. So work is a joy for me. So it's like, when am I in my power? And I always believe that the thing where you're happiest is because you're natural at doing it. So it's like it's going, when am I making a big impact? When am I enjoying that? And then I'm like, these are all the people in my life that bring me joy. These are all the things in my life that bring me joy. So like dancing in the kitchen to garage for an hour brings me joy. And then trying to limit the things that bring you down, so it's literally, if it brings you joy, it stays in your life. If it doesn't, it goes. I mean, it can have consequences because it means you make decisions. So, and then it's having to go, do you know what? I'm at my limit and I've got to make that decision.
And and not to continue too much, but it all goes, like, joy is a symptom of energy, right? So all of these things, happiness, joy, feeling grateful, it's all a symptom of energy, right? And like I said, we're all just living batteries. And once you know that, and you know what adds to your battery pack and what takes away, that's the biggest unlock, right? And then you start to be more intentional, right?
Well, there's so much power in and I think there's so many symbols in the world, isn't it, on what success is. And you touched on it with business, and you're in that traditional business mode at the moment where it's revenue, it's more profit, it's reporting constantly, and you're like, actually, hold on a second. What if we had less meetings? What if we didn't report on this what if we tore up the rule book and changed it? So there's so many rules that we think we have to follow. But if you do that joy exercise, but you take out it's totally fine if I want to go and work in Liberty customer service, because actually I sat there and thought, for me, there's a couple of signs when you're about to burn out. It's like, if I actually want to be run over, because then I could be in an ambulance arrest.
Oh my God.
So that's but it's knowing those things. Or actually I was sat in Liberty taking back a coat and I was like, do you know what? I'd quite like to just work in customer service. But then that's a symbol that I've got to change. Yeah. I've got to
take a breath,
have a word with myself. And then I often take myself away as well. So on my own for 2 days, or even just one night, I'll book myself a cabin and I'll rewrite my letter. So like writing that letter, because as I said, the one rule is that it will happen. So you don't write down what you think you should write down.
Oh no, you got to believe it.
Well, to add to that, and a sure way to get you to slow the fuck down. So I like to think of things in 25 years, right? I always say, if I'm not willing to solve the problem or serve the community for 25 years, it's not worth it, right? It has to be something that's big enough and focused enough that I can do, right? And now at the end of this, what does success actually look like, right? So you're not going to like this again, right? And I said, okay, in 25 years, if I have enough resources, or I'm part of a unit that can put a bid in, right? Then that's the financial, because I'm not driven by finances, but I'm like, okay, so it is important, so you have to make sure that you understand it, etc., etc. What will be worth buying? Well, I don't drive cars, I walk. I don't have watches, I have a Whoop. I don't wear fashion stuff, wear a black t-shirt. So I said, the only thing that I cannot switch off from is watching the game. That's the only thing I can't control myself, right? So what I've done is, I've described that moment when it happened, all the accolades that led to us achieving that. I wrote it as a letter that describes, we've just signed it, we've done it on the journey, etc., etc. And it's my partner reading the whole story of it, right? And then so the headline's there, the letter's there from that perspective. And then it says, okay, well, what do I have to do in year 24, 25? And by the time you get to today, you're like, oh, this is all I have to do?
Yeah.
All right. So now I know the steps, right? So now I'm like, well, I'm ahead of schedule. Yeah.
So,
love that.
Do you know what I love about this conversation is I know hands down I don't want to own a football club. So I'm like, that's fine. Great. That's your journey.
You can do that. Yeah. And I certainly would never buy Arsenal. But listen, this has been so amazing. And what you've just described is something, by the way, a practice I do every year, every January, do it for this year. Yeah. It's amazing. And it's the same when you get to, this is all I've got to do in January. It's easy. But we do have to finish. We're out of time. I could listen to you guys. It's been absolutely amazing. One last thing from both of you very quickly. The people listening have learned lots today and listening to your wisdom and your vulnerability. And thank you for that. What's the one thing you want them to take away from this? Like, how do we help them slow the fuck down?
I will say the words. It's not, my friend Timo Amu says, it's not that deep, right? Don't make things bigger than what they are. Realize that these are all games we're playing to keep ourselves occupied. As long as you realize that you're in a game, you'll be fine. The moment you make the game real life, that's when you start to get in a bit of a weird space, right? And just when you're in play mode, just adapt to that. Like revenue, cost savings, those just all like Mario points, right? And as long as you start to like see the world that way, you're actually more likely to do really well. Because again, you don't let the other elements get into play from what's just like the rule books to win the game, right? And that's what I would recommend the people do.
So I'm actually coming from back yourself and know yourself. So just building on that joy piece, as I said, the exercise I did was really about, let's be honest, Linn. Be really honest with what you want. And actually, if working in customer service at Liberty is what I want, then that's fine. There is and I think that takes a lot of pressure away when you really, really just know you and back you. You are the most valuable thing to you. There is nothing more valuable than your mental health, your who you are. Do what makes you happy.
Brilliant. Guys, thank you so much. This has been Slow the Fuck Down. Thank you for listening to the Slow the Fuck Down podcast with Glow London and The Drum. If you found this episode interesting and insightful, please help us spread the word by giving us a follow or sharing it with your friends. And if you feel inclined to give us a quick review, that would be awesome. Let's all do what we can to help the world slow the fuck down.